Good morning all. So about a month or two back when Shark Byte first came out, I popped up a video, and in this video I was having utterly abysmal performance. You may recall that my Shark Byte system, I was running it on this quad, and give or take 10 meters from me the picture was going to rubbish. It was utterly awful. That kind of left me with a little bit of a I wasn't that impressed. But I gave it the benefit of the doubt and I said, well, let me get a replacement VTX, because I was convinced that my VTX was bad. And the end result is, a couple of days ago in the post, I received two little boxes. There we go, you can see a little TX5S1 and a TX5M1. Now, that's the big VTX, which is the TX5M1, and the little one is the S1, which with the S1, which is the only one I've done anything with so far, I built myself a little quad. And there you go. It's a little Beta HX100 or 115 it might be, and I've done a little conversion. I've got the VTX inside here, I've got a little RunCam ByteShark camera, and the thing works, and it does deliver a pretty decent picture to this. Now, you probably can detect I'm not sounding overwhelmed, and I think the best way of me explaining it, ByteShark, that plus that, fantastic. It really is very good in this class of quad, and I'm certain that once I get it working properly on this by changing the parts out, it will also work well. But, and here is the big but, it leaves me with a little bit of a, it's just not good enough. Now, I think there's a big overall caveat I have to add to that. The problem I have is that I own these, and these are just way better. And it's not even so much about the signal quality. The signal quality on these is good, but it's the optics. So I started to wonder why, because when I fly with this here around the garden and I'm getting a pretty decent HD picture, and I can fly behind my house and I can go around and do everything, and I crash a lot. That's what happens. But there's nothing inherently wrong with it. But what I really notice when I've gone from the DJI goggles over here through to the Fat Sharks over here, the screen size. Now, right back at the when Shark Byte, or was it Bytefrost, the very early beta came out, I made a point of saying the same thing, that one of the biggest things that you really notice, it's the screen size between that and that. And these sort of displays are optimized for the type of picture. So let's be honest. Think about your TV. Nowadays you've probably got a great big digital television, and it's fantastic, and it's HD, and it's high res. And then you go watch an old film on it, and the picture gets kind of upscaled. And the result is that the old film looks dithered and pretty much crap. Well, the same sort of thing happens with FPV. So we've got screens on these, which granted they are pretty decent, but they've still been optimized for the resolution that we can receive via analog. They have not been optimized for the resolution that you can receive via digital and HD. So the net result is that if I'm using my DJI goggles over here and I look at an analog feed, and this is very important because DJI is not the greatest at everything. So if I'm using my DJI goggles looking at analog feed, you'll notice that what DJI have done is they shrink the picture down so you don't get the benefit of the full display. The reason they do this is because as you upscale the picture, it actually just kind of looks a little bit grainy and dithered. So you're taking a low-res image and trying to scale it up, and it doesn't work so well. Now, the same thing happens in reverse, because if I were looking at that analog picture on these screens, I'd be going, fantastic, and likewise for my Orca goggles, it's fantastic. But the problem also happens is if I take an HD image and I shrink that down, what I'm looking at is a high resolution tiny display. Whereas if I pick up my DJI goggles, I'm looking at a high resolution big display. And that makes a huge difference to how I as an end user interact with the environment around me. I think the strategic thing here that the likes of Fat Shark need to do, they need to build a different set of goggles, because functionally there's actually little wrong with SharkByte. It works. It's a functional good system and a great competitor to DJI, but the goggles at this point, as good as they are, start to let them down because the optics are just not up to showing that sort of resolution picture. So I guess this is a strategic thing. Maybe Fat Shark will be seen to release an HDO something, whatever it is, HD or HD, who knows? But I think that would, from my point of view, be the strategic thing. It's a nice integrated set where you have the analog but with the digital all integrated in. And maybe that would start becoming quite an attractive proposition. But you then just begin to wonder why, and this is such a challenging economic time for the likes of Fat Shark, because the real advantage right now to this system is if I've already got a pair of goggles. If I didn't own a pair of HDOs or similar, and I was coming completely brand new into the market, so what's it going to set you back? Maybe 400 odd for the goggles, another 150 to 200 for that, the antennas. So you're going to be paying 600 odd pounds. One's going to give you a whole lot more for much the same money, aren't you? And then you start to say, well, this is a really tough call. But if I owned the goggles already, that's very attractive because I can get a massive jump forward. You know, it's one of those things. And then it actually leads me to another area, because quite often I hear people say, oh, going digital is so expensive. You know, but the thing is, it's actually not. So we have to look at this subjectively and say, what are you getting for your money? So granted, these are expensive, but hey, so are these. You know, so you're basically dealing with an expensive and inexpensive. Once you've got the goggles out the way, what does it really cost? So let's ask yourself, if you were to buy say a Matex 500 milliwatt VTX plus a true RC antenna, so half decent antenna, plus a RunCam split with a DVR on board. Okay, so now you're talking, what's that? DVR, VTX, camera. You're talking probably 80 to 90 odd pounds, maybe, depending. I don't know what that is in dollars, maybe $100 odd of spent. Well, a Caddx Nebula Vista type combination is going to cost you about the same. So it isn't really far different. I think the digital is fractionally more expensive, just a little bit, but you're also getting a whole lot more. And on top of that, what you have is this incredible benefit of just, you wire on 4 wires, there's no noise, there's no interference, it just works. And I think unless something dramatically different comes out, I think we're going to see more and more people just going the digital route. I just wish that there was a DJI option of that for that goggle and that quad, because certainly over the last 12 to 24 months we've seen a massive surge in these little tiny toothpick sized quads, and it's an absolute shame that DJI doesn't have something yet. But I'm quite sure it will come out. You know, the law of averages basically would turn around and say give it 12 months and you'll probably find some kind of board which gives a digital signal, 25 milliwatt fixed rate, and just works, which suits the whoops. I'd be surprised if DJI are not on that right now, because it's a huge market. But I don't know. You know, the long and short of it is that which way do you choose? Because I'm stuck in this quandary, is that I quite like the Shark Byte system here for flying the toothpicks. it's a nice option, but I also find myself feeling slightly let down when I do that. So the result is that if I had to make a choice between picking up this one or picking up this one, now both of these, I'll hold them up, that's fully digital, that's not. The downside this way is a damn sight more, it's ducted, it has its own issues, I need a bigger battery. And then I got this, and I like both of them, but I prefer flying the toothpick round my garden, because the toothpick has so little energy that it's not going to cause a problem. This, whilst not really a problem, is still just on the edge of being too big. Just. So, it's kind of, we're in this hybrid state, aren't we? There's no right or wrong to this, but I think I'm personally going to see myself gradually becoming more and more sort of digital DJI as opposed to SharkByte, because the picture's just that much better. But I'd be very interested to see if Fat Shark produced something slightly different with a bigger set of goggles. You know, this is not out of their remit, and it may make all the difference to swing people a different way. So, hey, that's my 2p. I don't know if that's helped you at all. I think right now, if you were brand new to the market, I would still be buying the DJI. But whether or not Fat Shark will make real penetration into that market over the next 12 months, that's yet to be seen. I have a feeling they might. It'll be interesting. Fun times indeed. Cheers guys, enjoy!